name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. Christos anesti, Elisos anesti. Christ is risen, truly He is risen. We thank God for giving us grace and blessing to meet through these contemplations and to contemplate on His living Word as we continue this period, which thankfully, or thank God, is coming to an end, with our churches hopefully opening on the 15th of May, and some of you, 10 of you, will be able to come and attend each liturgy, which is certainly a huge relief and a welcome news, and that we will be able to see all of you very soon through liturgies, and more importantly, as the restrictions ease more and more, there'll be a chance for us to meet more often and to take your blessing in the church. Today's Gospel comes from the Gospel of St. John, chapter 7, and it's specifically from verses 14 to 29. And here we see the Jews again unhappy with Christ, because Christ performed a miracle on a Sabbath. And in this they question Him. But before they question Him, right at the beginning of today's Gospel, we find it tells us that the Jews marveled, saying, "How does this man know letters, having never studied?" Having never studied, or the question of how Christ knew, it's not that Christ wasn't educated, but rather it was custom at that time that when someone was teaching, they'd know which rabbi this person had been brought under, or had been educated by, or had been prepared by. And in the case of Christ, it was unknown. And because Christ says to them very clearly that He received His teaching from the Father. He received His teaching from God. And that He is here, or His doctrine is the doctrine of God. He says to them very clearly, "My doctrine is not mine, but His who sent me." But one of the verses that I really wanted to contemplate on here is what Christ draws their attention to. And this is, I think, in today's world and in today's age, what we really need to be concerned with, especially with so many new doctrines that keep popping up and new teachings that continue to try and threaten the faith and threaten the church. And Christ says something very simple in verse 17. He says to them, "If anyone wills to do His will, he shall know concerning the doctrine, whether it is from God, or whether I speak on my own authority." See, the question here that we need to search for is, where is God in this doctrine? Or where is God in His teaching? If it's a teaching that is teaching us something that is far from the Lord, that is far from the will of God, we should be able to very quickly know that this teaching is not of God, and that this teaching definitely doesn't glorify God. See, Christ says to them, "I glorify Him who sent me." He who speaks from himself seeks his own glory, but he who seeks the glory of the one who sent him is true, and no unrighteousness in him. Christ came to point towards the Father. And many of these new heresies that we hear about every day, we find that they usually seek for the glory of the person that's spreading the heresy, rather than pointing towards God and pointing towards Christ. And here the church is trying to remind us of how we should decipher good doctrine from doctrine that is seeking the glory of the person who is teaching it. And in this, it reminds me of the beautiful verse in the book, in the epistle of John chapter 2, right at the end of the epistle. St. John says to the believers something very important that we actually were doing in our Bible study last night. He says to them, "If you know that He is righteous, you know that everyone who practices righteousness is born of Him." And this is what God and the church reminds us today. God's doctrine always seeks righteousness, and in righteousness it grants glory to the Father and not to anyone else. May the Lord grant us the ability to always seek Him in everything that we do, seek Him in our learning of the word, seek Him in obeying His commandments, seek Him in glorifying His name always, and glory be to God forever and ever. Amen.